Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one. We're going to talk about the new Alter Ego palette, and this is their Midsummer palette. This palette retails for $17, and this actually dupes a very high-end brand which is Anastasia Beverly Hills, and they're duping the Nouveau palette. This is the cover, and this is how the palette looks. I love how compact it is. It's just beautiful. Like, look at that. That's my palm of the hand, okay? And it has all the shades that Abh Nouveau has, and comes with a mirror too, and exactly the same color story, just mismatched here and there. But this is more on like a summer theme, so we have Meadow, Glare, Tuscan, Festival is calling out to me. Like, I cannot wait to dive into this palette. Actually Alter Ego reached out to me with two of their palettes. I have one more palette from them, which is the Coastal palette, which dupes Huda Beauty's Rose Quartz palette, which also I have, which I also purchased like recently from the Sephora sale that was going on. We're going to dive into that palette a little later, but I definitely wanted to use this first. So we're going to dive into this and see if this stays true to the claim and how the quality is, because that's what matters the most. I love, like, Alter Ego is not new to me. I have like 4 of their palettes already, and Canyon palette and Sahara palette is like one of my favorite palettes that they have in their collection. Recently, I've not tried their palettes, so let's test this out and see how beautiful the quality is, or it's not worth the money. So if you're ready, let's begin. Okay, obviously I've done my face makeup, only eyes are left. I'm going to first start off with this shade, which is Tuscan, this one, a very transition-y shade for me, I would say. And let's apply that all across our crease area, like a transitioning area. It's more like my skin tone, so it'll be a good blending shade for me. So far so good. I definitely can see the pigment like covering up my veins, and moreover has like a little bit of a rosy undertone, which I love. I like that as a blending shade. Okay, let's move on to the next shade, which I feel like I'm gonna take Solstice in my inner third, and we'll go with like more of a sagey green shade, this one on the outer corners, which is Meadow. Let's do that. I'm gonna first take Solstice, and this is reference number 1. It picks out really nicely on the brush, tapping off the excess. Oh, look at that shade. So pretty. Blending very nicely and meshing it up with the transitioning shade that we used. So I'm basically tapping the pigment and blending the edges. Like, look how easy was that. So good. I'm going to take the same shade on my lower lash line too, just blowing it out everywhere, just because we are going to take that sagey green shade Meadow on the outer corners. I mean, I was like seeing if it is worth $17, but even if I'm not taking like price as a consideration, this blends up beautifully. I love that shade. The shade that I'm applying right now as like a one and done shade, that will be gorgeous. Just wiping the brush off so that all the pigment is out. Now it's nice and clean, just the staining. I'm going to go into Meadow, which is that sage green shade. Tap off the excess and start packing that in the outer corners and melting it with that peachy shade that we applied first. Out of the back, what I'm seeing is this palette is not like deep enough, and so is not the Abh Nouveau palette. So if you're looking for the dupe vibe, I feel like this is a great dupe. But if you are like a tan to deep kind of a person, I don't think Nouveau or Midsummer would like show up so nicely on you, just because of the color story. Not saying that anything is wrong with the pigmentation, but if you are eyeing the Nouveau, Midsummer is great. And I also have like a coupon code with them, with Alter Ego, and it's just Smithy Sony to save you 10% off. Although it's like super affordable, but you can save a tad bit more by using my code. See? So I'm not seeing like super depth, but if you're looking for like a mid-tone palette, this is great. The deepest shade of this palette is a shimmer. That's not my vibe, but we can test it out. I generally avoid like deeper shades on my outer corner, but we'll see. I'm gonna take this shade, which is Twilight, this one, and this is the deepest shade of the palette, this one, and I'm gonna spray it a tad bit just so that I don't see any like fallout from this shade. The last thing that I want is fallout on my eyes, and that to a deeper shade. I'm gonna place that in the outer corners. I mean, I can see depth, I guess. We can make it work like this. But again, because it's a shimmer shade, you will see a sheen coming through. Yeah. I don't think I'm such a big fan of the shimmer shade, especially deeper one. Dying to use the other shimmer shade on the eyelid. But yeah, if you want to deepen up the outer corner, you can use it this way. It's not giving me the blend that I'm looking for. Definitely have to work with it. Going back into Meadow, and then going in the outer corners and blending that shade out. Yeah, that helps. Wiping off the excess, going back into Solstice, the first shade that we tried, in the inner crease. Just going back, melting with that sage green shade, just so that I don't want to lose that shade, because that's like my favorite matte shade in this palette. And we can totally make it like a matte look by just leaving it there. Super elegant, super simple, super effective. Now let's move on to that sage green shade that we use, Meadow, and I'm gonna just place that on the lower lash line. So the first shade that we're gonna do is Dew, or should we do Pollen? Pollen would also be good. Or let's do Pollen actually. I'm gonna do Pollen and then this shade, this and this. So let's do that. I'm gonna just pick it up with my fingers. It's like a traditional shimmer. I'm gonna just place that there. Before I apply my, the sparkly dazzling shade, I'll just apply NYX glitter glue, because I feel like it's lacking the pigment without it. We'll just go over that with the green shade too. Okay, let's do that again. I'm gonna take that shade Pollen, and place it right there, melting it with the outer corners. Definitely amped it up a little bit, not much, but just a little bit. And then Let's take the shade Festival. This is my favorite shade by looking at the palette. I don't want it to disappoint me any bit. I'm gonna take that. Yeah, love that. It has the sparkle, the shine, the lightness that I'm looking for. Yeah, definitely my favorite shade. Oh, that just amped up the look. Yeah, that's beautiful. I've seen like many YouTubers compare this to the Nouveau side by side and said that this is like a perfect dupe. I'm glad that this is in my collection and not Nouveau, just because I would have been very unhappy if the rest of the shimmers, like I'm really happy with the Festival shade, but with the lack of the depth, I would have been really unhappy with the ABH Nouveau, as well as the other shimmer shade that we applied, which was like more of like a satin shade. Definitely one to look out for, I would say. Next thing that I would do is I'll take the shade Dew, this silvery green shade, and I'm gonna take that in my inner corner just for a subtle pop. Yeah, that's super, super bright, super bright. Okay, so that's the eye look that we have today. I'm just gonna blend all of it together. Just one final touch. And I'm gonna finish off my eyes with some liner and mascara, and I'll get right back. So that's my look with the Midsummer palette by Alter Ego. Okay, I have my final thoughts. I feel like for a $17 palette, this is beautiful. It's absolutely stunning for $17. Yes, I don't have ABH Nouveau, but if ABH Nouveau is exactly like this, I would not suggest ABH Nouveau. For $17, if you're looking for these tones, it's really good. But again, because it is lacking that depth, I'm not a big fan of it, and I would have loved it 10 times more if every shimmer shade in here was this kind of a shimmer shade with like Festival. Even this shade looks very similar like shine wise, but this is like a satin on my eyes. Let's do a live swatch so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about, because I did not use everything. So the first shade is Camp, the next is Meadow, then we have Glare. So let's swatch this. That's how it looks. The first one, the Camp shade, looks very nice. Like for an everyday, that looks really, really nice. Like a bronzy shade. There you go. That's the first three shades. I really like Camp. Like for all over the eyelid, like a bronzy eye, that'll be great. The second shade, as you can see, the Meadow shade, looks a lot deeper on my hand, like in a swatch. But you can see, like when I applied it on my eyes, it was not as deep as you can see it on my hand. Like that's not deep enough for me. Okay, let's move on to the next three shades. We have Tuscan, which was our transitioning shade, Solstice, which undoubtedly is my favorite matte shade in the palette, and then Twilight that we used for deepening out the outer corners. So that's the next three shades. Definitely a deepening shade for sure. Beautiful for like smoky eye. But not sure whether this was needed in the palette or not. So that was the first 6 shades of the palette. And obviously this is on my medium tan skin tone. It would look completely different if you are more of a lighter skin tone person. It will look more ashy if you are a deeper skin tone person. Okay, let's move on to the next 3 shades. We have Dew, Pollen, and my favorite shimmer from the palette, Festival. There you go. This one, Festival, has so much more dimension to it too. Dew Pollen Festival. There you go. Those are the next 3 shades. Now let's move on to the final 3 shades. We have Vanilla, which is a matte white, like a creamy white shade. Then we have Tempest, which looks like a blue-brown pigment. Yep. And then we have Lavender, which is like a matte lavender shade. There you go. Let's swatch it. That's a good pigmented white. Appreciate that. Definitely have seen better blue-brown pigment. But the lavender is stunning too. Look at that. That's the entire Midsummer palette swatched for you guys. Take a screenshot, look at it. If you like the color story, you will not be disappointed, especially for $17. I see a lot of dimension and shimmer, especially I love this shade. I love that the beautiful shimmer shade. I love this matte shade. Yeah, I feel like those are like my top picks from the palette. When I look at the color story, that's the only gripe that I have, that doesn't have a matte deepening shade. Yeah, so that's my final thoughts on the Midsummer palette. I love how travel friendly it is, how small it is. So if I won't be like mad if I'm traveling with this. I have had no issues traveling with the Alter Ego palettes. One, because it's so concise, it's easy to pack on in any bag. And I do not have that fear of like losing or like breaking an eyeshadow. But I would still say, looking at the color story, I still like the Canyon and the Sahara palette a little bit more than the Midsummer palette, but I love the artwork. Love the artwork, especially when I'm talking about like the color story on my medium skin tone is what I'm talking about, obviously. So those were my thoughts on the Alter Ego Midsummer palette. Do let me know if you have already picked out this palette or not. And if you are trying to like pick up this palette for $17, I don't think it's a bad choice at all. And if you're planning to pick it up, use my code Smithy Sony to save some more money. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like the video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.